morning. If you're watching this live, then it's morning. If you're watching us at night, go to bed. Good night. Welcome to FAC Live, a First Atlantic commerce show that covers all things e-commerce in the Caribbean. We have guests from across the island, and today we have an international guest that's going to give us, Latin America International, some insight when it comes to digital transformation. Because we have been forced to adapt to whatever this new normal is, and we need to learn as much as possible from those who know. So today our guest is Herbert Lewy. He is here to talk about digital transformation in the Caribbean. He is the General Manager and Chief Digital Transformation Officer of Caribbean at Microsoft. Before I invite our guest in, which includes Chris, who is the CEO of FAC. Make sure to smash that follow button and be notified the next time we go live on both Facebook and LinkedIn. These sessions are so invaluable. I've learned so much, and I'm sure you will as well. So let's bring in our guest. Let's add our folks in. Good morning. So let's just do a quick round robin on where everybody is. Herbert, can you let us know where you are?
Yeah, good morning, Pauline and Chris, and thank you so much for this opportunity to have a dialogue about such an important and relevant topic, more than ever, digital transformation, and specifically for the Caribbean. I am Uruguayan, that's why you can hear this perfect British Shakespearean accent, but I am living in Puerto Rico for the past 15 years, and I am broadcasting from Puerto Rico. It's a pleasure to be here today.
So grateful that you said thanks for sharing an hour of your time, and we want to drill as much information out of you today as possible. Chris, for those who may not necessarily have seen the hundreds of live sessions we've done before, can you share insight to who you are at First Atlantic Commerce and where you are?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thanks, Pauline, and hi to you, Herbert, as well. I am the CEO of First Atlantic Commerce. We're an e-commerce payment gateway company that is working with probably the majority of e-commerce clients across the Caribbean and Central America, as we've been around for 22 years now. I am unfortunately back from working from home. Bermuda has gone into lockdown again this week as of today, so hence the lovely background. And my kids are also home schooling from here today as well. So apologies if you hear anything in the background there. I have asked them to be very quiet, but we'll see.
I think everybody who's watching this are aware of the life we are living right now, which I think is such a great point from a transformation perspective. You know, you just be caught without your background, and for some reason you have to do your live sessions anyway. So we're going to pivot, guys, because that is a trending word to use. When it comes to e-commerce, it is such a topical point of discussion for a lot of businesses because we're trying to figure out how to continuously drive revenue with consumers who are no longer leaving their homes, right? So when it comes to this word digital transformation, because it's so trendy, it's something that people assign to technology they may not necessarily understand. Herbert, can you shed some light on in the most layman of terms, because I am here, right? So share with me what digital transformation is to the small business owner.
Well, and it was said by you, so we are in the midst of this accelerated change in everything that we do, from, let's say, how we study, and mostly accelerated by the pandemic, but how we study, how we buy things, how we socially interact with different environments in different places, how we grow as individuals, even our exercises today are driven in a different way. So if we go to the essence of digital transformation, you will find probably thousands of definitions of what digital transformation is. And I believe that it's important to consider that this is a concept that is very broad. And to somehow frame it, I will bring the concept of the fourth industrial revolution. That is, once again, both topics that are completely interconnected can reflect the moment in time we are living. And first, why is a revolution and it's not an evolution? Basically, the difference between both of them is that you have two vectors that are in the revolutions that can somehow point us towards this accelerated change. And one is speed, and the other one is plurality. So how fast we are going into the changes and how many people can get on board are the critical factors for that. And also revolutions normally happen when you have a combination of elements that from a synergical standpoint, they can produce once again an accelerated vector. And you have multiple components altogether. So you have today cloud computing, that probably is the most important one, is the vehicle to accelerate all this transformation. You have social networking, you have big data, so you have data that is growing in an accelerated pace, not only from a structured perspective, but mostly from the non-structured perspective. And all these components together are somehow bringing this moment in time of digital transformation that probably during this conversation we'll be going much, much deeper on the scenarios, on the specifics, and most of all, on the opportunity that I am foreseeing for the Caribbean. We are seeing a trend, and I believe that today we are in a pivotal moment in time that we have to take into consideration that as an emergent economist, we can do much, much better towards the future if we get into this train of digital transformation.
Great, and I would love to find out a little bit more on the trending conversation in the Caribbean. But before we get to that, Chris, I'm sure you have a wealth of experience, 2 decades, a little over that, in your space in e-commerce. And when it comes to e-commerce, the first thing everyone thinks about is building that website. It's just like, I'm just going to build that website and I'm going to get all this revenue and I'm going to pull Amazon customers and it's all going to be great. I'm going to be a millionaire. Can you share with us why that digital transformation conversation has to happen within the e-commerce space?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. And that is a very common mindset that people think, okay, I'm just going to put up a Shopify website or a Wix website and I'm ready to go. And I'm suddenly going to be dealing with hundreds and potentially thousands of customers. And this will be the best decision I've ever made from a business perspective. But there's so much more that goes into actually running that e-commerce business. So it's not just picking which platform you're going to use and how that platform is adapted to the geography that you're in. So when we talk about that, obviously my expertise is in the payment side of it. So a lot of these platforms that people are choosing may not have the connectivity to accept payments within the Caribbean or Central America for that matter. So that's a key component. If your website wants to be fully sort of e-commerce payments enabled, you really have to be able to take the technology, the back end considerations almost first to make sure that you can actually receive those payments. So PayPal, for example, doesn't work in the Caribbean for businesses. Stripe doesn't work in the Caribbean for businesses. So you need to really do your homework before setting that up. And then, there are different aspects of logistics that you have to take into consideration and how that's actually how your products are going to get delivered. Because again, some of the logistics options you might have in North America are not going to be applicable within the Caribbean. And then, and even if they are, do they deliver to all areas of the particular countries that you're dealing with? Are they just a simple drop ship? Will they actually deliver to home? And a lot of that is even more important these days because of the restrictions that we have. And even when we think we're coming out of lockdown, just as we've had this week, we've gone back into lockdown again. And then how you actually use your digital strategy to communicate with your customers and your potential customers is incredibly important. And we've seen that a lot across the Caribbean where companies have not really taken the right roads or made enough effort in terms of communicating with their customers about how to be able to use their website or what you can buy from their website. And it causes frustration on both sides. So it's a huge learning experience on how to get that message across to all aspects of your customer base.
So when it comes to being an entrepreneur, you have all these different balls in the air. You're trying to figure out a lot of things, and it can be overwhelming because we are in the information age. I want to be specific in this question to Herbert because a lot of the times we have grand ideas, and similar to what Chris said earlier on, when it comes to setting up that website and having a digital strategy, we may have the best intentions and you may end up with a simple thing as @gmail.com, right? Because we're so accustomed to using a gmail.com, we don't realize that's a brand association for your business, right? And I know Microsoft offers a lot of tools for SMEs. And when it comes to building that out, what is the top gap in that space in the Caribbean that you're seeing when it comes to that shift to being online?
Well, the first point we have to take into consideration, I understand, is that we have to believe in the opportunity we have ahead of us. And I will be once again coming to the roots. When we say fourth industrial revolution, we say digital transformation. What in essence we are referring to is the democratization of the access to the opportunity. And why? Because the fundamentals of this digital transformation is once again the democratization of the access to compute power. That is the fuel of digital transformation. So when I visit the different countries in the Caribbean, actually in Microsoft in the Caribbean cover 33 countries through 5 offices and 8 sub-territories. So there's a lot to be covered, multiple cultures, multiple languages, multiple scenarios. I do foresee in most of the cases self-inflicted blockers in the process to move ahead in an accelerated pace with the digital transformation. That is probably the most relevant thing I have to say about this moment in time and the opportunity we do have in the Caribbean. Why is that? Because for the first time in history, in modern history, we have the accessibility to the same technology at the same time and at the same price in every single corner of the world. So today, there's no reason for a company not to be accelerating their e-commerce strategy, basically through what Chris was mentioning. There's no reason why a company in the Caribbean should be holding back of doing that. There's no reason why a company, meaning a small company that we can talk much deeper about the opportunity to collaborate with this segment, but also big corporations in the Caribbean, governments in the Caribbean, academic institutions. There's no reason why they shouldn't be getting into this, once again, this opportunity by accessing to the same technology. I'm saying if you go to the 4 pillars of how we define digital transformation, basically engaging your customers or your citizens or your students by using these e-commerce tools and by using artificial intelligence and by using elements to be one step ahead of the demand. So this is something that every single company can use. If you go to the second pillar of empowering your employees, and once again, you mentioned an example of using a Gmail account or let's say a public-based service instead of using an enterprise service that today they can acquire at these prices that I'm mentioning you that are cost-effective enough for the companies to really embrace these new tools to make their collaborators to get more productive, use it in a secure way, in a remote fashion that is somehow part of the trends of COVID also, of being not only digital first, not only cloud first, secure first, but also remote first. And that can be easily get in every single country in the Caribbean. If you're talking about Microsoft 365, Office 365, all the components related to advanced security that can really make the companies to accelerate their pace in digital transformation by ensuring that the privacy and the security and the cybersecurity and the responsible AI and the digital elements, digital assets are really protected. This is something that every single company can do today. So that's probably my encouragement to the audience that is attending to this live, to just explore that. And we are in the Caribbean precisely for that. We decided to be a global company, but a strong commitment in the local places where we serve our customers through our partners. So this is something that should happen today. We shouldn't wait much more to start, because as well as I'm saying that this is a democratization of the access to the opportunity, at the same time I'm saying that the train will stop, the train will pass, and then we probably will be just reading from the backwards. So that's part of the encouragement to move ahead as fast as possible.
I think that those are such great points that I think that is going to turn the point of this discussion, because it's really a cultural and mindset that I want us to dissect. Before we do, we're going to go on a small break. Herbert, is it possible for you to go closer to wherever your internet is, because you're a bit choppy? And it seems to be the internet, and I don't want anybody to miss the value of what you have to say. I know we do have a closed caption for live, but it's been a little difficult because it's going in and out. So we'll be right back in a couple of seconds. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to FAC Live. If you're just joining us, we're here with Herbert from Microsoft. He's representing the Caribbean, and Chris, which is a well-known name in this space of First Atlantic Commerce because he is the CEO. And we're here to discuss digital transformation, which is so important in the e-commerce space as well, in just us surviving as small business owners. If you missed it, make sure to catch the replay, because there were some gems that were discussed in terms of the connection between e-commerce and digital transformation. Now, there was this discussion around, the reason why the Caribbean may not be as far as it should when it comes to digital adoption. And I want to expand on that a bit, make sure that we have a discussion around that soft skill environment, because, when you look at statistics, the Caribbean is one of the most educated spaces in the world, and we have such a high penetration of access to the internet. You have a point where in Trinidad and Tobago, there's 2 phones for every 1 person in the country. So the real question is, why aren't we connecting the dots to see the value in making sure that our businesses are online and connected with the customers? So Chris, I'm going to put you in the hot seat and maybe give us some insight into your experience and some of the hurdles that businesses are engaging with.
Yeah, thank you. So, as you mentioned, I've been in this space for nearly 2 decades now, and have spent the majority of that time traveling through the Caribbean and Central America, and talking to companies, to banks, to technology providers, through to sort of trade industries. And, my experience has been that I think, people are only seeking out the information when they actually need it. And I know that sounds obvious, but even though you're doing a lot of marketing as we do, people are only ready to receive that information when they actually, perceive that they need to use it. So, what we have found is that, once people are engaged and see the value, then they take it on board quite quickly. So, e-commerce, obviously last year is a great example of that. So, we have been doing e-commerce for a long time. We have thousands of merchants set up on our platform. But, once we got into, April, March, April, May last year, the uptake of new clients coming onto our platform was incredible. And it even took us by surprise a little bit, if I'm honest. So, we had to change our strategy as well to deal with, a region that was, maybe a little bit behind from an e-commerce perspective, suddenly having to engage all their digital strategies, maybe that they were planning sort of 12, 24 months away, or maybe didn't have at all, and then suddenly bringing that into fruition within a month or two. So, we had to do a lot more in terms of, how we dealt with our support, how we engaged with all our clients, because we are, the majority of our team is here in Bermuda. We have developers in different parts of the world. We have, other team members in Central America, for example, as well. So we are operating with clients in 32 different countries. So we had to adapt our technology and our strategy to make sure that we are able to service all our clients in all the countries and the different languages that we're operating with across our territory. So, and I think, people, there is, we've talked about this before, this sort of this notion of a self-fulfilling prophecy that it is too difficult, or I can't afford it, or the information is not there. And, as we've seen through all these sessions that we've been doing, that information is there. It does require you to take some effort on your side to seek it out as well. But there is now a lot of content that is created specifically for the Caribbean in terms of e-commerce, digital strategy, digital transformation. And there are a lot of tools that are available that are specifically designed and accessible for companies within the Caribbean. And knowledge bases, like things like YouTube, you can literally learn to do pretty much anything on YouTube. I had a family member that was having an operation. They sent me a link to the type of operation they're having. I didn't want to watch it, but you can literally watch live surgeries on YouTube. So getting access in terms of SEO, or what is blockchain, what is e-commerce, what is a merchant account, all that information is on YouTube. Or if you want to extend your knowledge more, like websites like Coursera are excellent. And these sessions that we're doing today as well, and getting industry leaders like Herbert involved in the conversation. And it's great to see big companies like Microsoft embedding themselves locally to actually address the local needs, and not taking a US approach and trying to make it work in the Caribbean. Herbert and his team are specifically looking how to tailor everything to the region, and I think that's really important.
Surgery, ew. My mom, I could attest to that. My mom calls herself a graduate of YouTube University, yeah. And I'm so proud of her. You don't understand, because this is a woman. She like, oh my gosh, I want to, get an iPhone, but then comes to me and asks me how to work it. I was like, can you just go on YouTube? So she has graduated, and I'm such a proud daughter. And I think it's such a great point to connect with the digital transformation, because change is hard. Like, let's just put that flat out there. Change is extremely hard. And when it comes to business owners, I want to break it down in as layman terms as possible and action items, right? Full disclaimer for everybody out there, I used to work at Microsoft, okay, so I might have some biases, but my business is actually built on the ecosystem of Office 365, and I cannot praise it enough, and I want Herbert to join in on this conversation to share some insight on that, because the amount of value I get for an average $8 to $10 US a month is insane. And for you not to actually have that in your business, it's just, what are you doing? That's what I just want to ask. So Herbert, can you shed some light on the Office 365 features? I think it's changed its name now to Microsoft 365.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Pauline. And actually, I want to build on top of a point that Chris brought, and then I jump to your specific question. Because Chris was referring to one of the most critical elements of success of this digital transformation process in the Caribbean, that is skilling. And because today, as we mentioned, you will have virtually access to any technology that is available in the world through cloud computing, including all the Office 365 value proposition that I will be discussing more in depth. But if we still have some sort of real ignorance or emotional fear, that will somehow prevent us to accelerate the pace of embracing these technologies for good. And we have done many things, mostly through the COVID times, to really help the populations and the citizens just to get on board with the latest technologies, starting from a very, very low entry point to ensure, as you mentioned, Pauline, in the case of your mom, she, in this process of democratizing the opportunity, she to have the same opportunities that anyone else. So how did we do that? So basically, we approached the three moments of digital transformation in the entire environments that we serve, meaning the emergency response, the recovery, and the reinvention, in a way that will be fitting for all these target audiences, meaning the academia, we mentioned the small companies, the big corporation, and so on and so forth. And we started to provide trainings, and we touched no less than 150,000 people in the Caribbean with these trainings that we did ad hoc. So we basically had a team that was delivering these virtual workshops throughout the Caribbean and helping people to understand how to work remotely, how to get engaged with data, how to make a proposal, how to make a quote, how to present ideas in a proper fashion. That basically all that stuff somehow is embedded in what you mentioned, that is also the Microsoft 365 or Office 365 value proposition. But this is key, so ensuring that the people can use the technology in a proper way. Technology itself is just a tool. Somehow we are so embedded into this crazy world of abundance of technology and artifacts and assets in a digital world that sometimes we forget that these are tools, and tools are as good as the people are using them for a certain purpose. Jumping to another environment of skilling that I believe is important is that since July, Microsoft decided to be a critical player in helping people to get re-engaged in their jobs. That's super important because we lost many jobs during the pandemic. So we created different initiatives that were related to skilling for employability, as we call it. One of the most important ones is, you know, that LinkedIn is also owned by Microsoft, and GitHub is also owned by Microsoft. So we assessed the 10 more demanded jobs and roles in the world. And we built 10 workshops, trainings with LinkedIn certification, combining this Microsoft Learn, LinkedIn Learning, and GitHub Learning Lab to ensure we can empower the people in the entire world. And our initial goal was 25 million people before June this year, and we already surpassed in January 30 million people. And actually, if you just go to Trinidad and Tobago, you will find 12,000 learners that got engaged into these courses. And we are not talking about just technical stuff. We're talking about customer service. We're talking about project management and sales development and sales representative. These are the three more consumed trainings in Trinidad and Tobago, for example. And I can bring the numbers of the entire Caribbean because we have it. So the opportunities in there to use these trainings because they're completely free, and they will provide you a certification, and it will help you like transform the way you think transform the way you can have access to opportunities, even including the networking that you can create in these LinkedIn environments. So you have like a IT administrator, you have a graphic designer, you have web design and programming. So we do have some technical training, but we also have from others. So jumping to the specifics of your question, clearly today there's no excuses why not to leverage the value of a platform in the case of, as we mentioned, empowering you and empowering your teams by using Office 365 or Microsoft 365. So obviously we have the well-known Office platform, including PowerPoint, Word, Excel, and all these components that are used as a cloud service that also can allow you to collaborate properly. So you can work many people at the same document, and you don't have to use this old way of managing versions. For example, version final, final one, final, final, final. So you know what I'm talking about. You've been there. I've been there too. So today you can have only one version of the truth and have the system working for you in that sense. But also you can have, for example, access to OneDrive. So you can use, you have this huge amount of storage capacity in these environments, and using the same privileges and profiles that you use for the other things that you do in your life. So you use your password, so the data is there. So if you are moving around and using another computer or another device, you can have access to this data. You can have access to RMS, for example, rights management services. That is super, super relevant, because you can add privileges to the content that you are creating in a way that people, for example, won't be able to print something that you don't want them to print, or forward an email in the case you don't want them to forward. And also, if you jump to security, all the management of the devices, ensuring that you have some intelligence there to I don't know, if you connected from two different places in the world with a difference of, 30 minutes. So the system will have the intelligence to avoid this scenario to happen and someone to take control of your account. Obviously, Teams was the queen and is the queen of this pandemic. We have today 115 million daily users. We have 30 billion minutes in meetings a day. That's huge. And that was also part of what we have lived during this pandemic, when Satya Nadella was saying in April of last year that we lived 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months. And part of that was us as human beings and as professionals getting used to work remotely. And that is today a huge advantage. If you compare that with the Spanish flu, and sorry that I extended a little bit this response, because I'm super passionate about this concept. So 100 years ago, we had the Spanish flu. It was super, super helpful for the entire humanity. It took like 1/3 of the population. So, but we started this pandemic, and we finished this pandemic without major changes, because we didn't have these artifacts. We didn't have these tools. So today, we could somehow surface the wave, so to speak, in most of the areas that was feasible to do that by the use of these digital assets. So this is proving us that probably for the future, we will have this change in paradigm. And using this, leveraging these tools, as you mentioned, as a user, and thank you so much for being a customer and a former Microsoft employee, and many things that were super relevant in your life. So, but this is super important. So people have like a super powerful tool at their fingertips. So that's important, and we have to leverage it today.
I can definitely say that the partnership that AC Marketing has, which is my company with First Atlantic Commerce, has seen the benefits of that, because when I have Trisha, who's part of the FAC team, saying, I haven't spoken to you for a while after the first 3 months in the year, I feel proud. because that means that the management of the content is working on the cloud system, which is built around Microsoft. And it's important for us to understand that technology is supposed to help us and make sure that we understand what it's supposed to bring to the table for your business. So we're going to come back on the other side. We have a few questions around that learning aspect, because free education is something I think that we all need to learn about, as well as some insights into what it means to jump on some opportunities in this time of lockdown. So I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to FAC Live, a show that covers all things e-commerce, and today we're talking about digital transformation. If you are watching this on a replay, don't worry, you could still put your comments below and we'll make sure to tag Herbert and he will answer them. If you've been watching from the get-go, don't be afraid to slide into the comments and ask your questions, because we are getting access to someone who is extremely busy, so let's take advantage of it. So when it comes to the Caribbean, there are some trends and opportunities that I think the lockdown has allowed for businesses. And I want Chris to shed some light on that in the e-commerce space.
Sure. So I think, the really obvious ones are things like delivery. So, supermarkets, pharmacies, restaurants, all of them have this great opportunity to not only stay afloat during a lockdown period, but also to increase their revenue when it comes to, sort of post-lockdown, because, once people realize how easy it is to order online and, from your favorite restaurant or from your favorite fast food place and have it delivered to your home, you might, instead of cooking that evening, you might just order in, for example. So you're increasing your ability to sell extra plates effectively. And it also is giving us a lot of opportunities around modernizing technology. So taxis, for example, like we don't have Uber specifically, but we do have other opportunities now where you can order your taxi or your rideshare through an app and pay through a card, which is not only just more convenient for the actual individual. If you're somebody like me who doesn't really carry cash around, and I will only use a taxi service that will take a card these days, but it's also much more secure for the taxi driver. So if you're moving from driving around with effectively pockets full of cash into a card-based system, you're automatically securing your environment a lot better from that perspective. So and also when it comes to just straightforward accounts receivables for companies, rather than having these invoices that you're sending out and they go and sitting in people's inboxes for 30, 60, 90 days, sometimes longer, trying to collect because you're only accepting cash or God forbid, checks. From that perspective, if you have a model like a subscription-based model, like a utility or some sort of telco provider or cable provider, the ability to be able to accept cards and do repeat payments or recurring payments via your website just really gives you that ability to shorten your accounts receivable, which, especially at the moment, it's all important to make sure that you have that cash flow to make sure that you can continue to operate your business. But and also taking to what Herbert was saying earlier, was in terms of the technology, we wouldn't be able to operate the way we do as FAC without the use of the tools that we have. So, as I say, we're headquartered here in Bermuda. We operate in 32 different countries, and we do that without having to put an office or individuals on the ground in each one of those countries, which is obviously an expensive exercise. So our cost of doing business, because of the tools that we're using, like Teams, for example, is just so intricate to what we do on a day-to-day basis right now. Mentioned OneDrive as well. I use that all the time, and it's just an impressive way to be able to move your documentation around and your information around, as also more environmentally friendly from that perspective as well. So I don't have to print out reams of paper anymore, and I can access my information from wherever that might be. So the small investment in these types of tools will ultimately save your business considerable amount of money in the long run.
Yeah, the idea of printing out anything just gets my heart, beating extremely fast. Like, what? I don't even own a printer, guys. No. We have been chatting over the last 40 minutes or so around the trends and opportunities. And Herbert mentioned earlier about 12,000 people from Trinidad and Tobago learning on LinkedIn, a free opportunity for those out there. And with that, I want Herbert to shed some light on trends and opportunities that may have evolved over the last decade that you would have seen in the Caribbean, because we are seeing new businesses popping up, during the lockdown, opportunities because discomfort brings innovation. But if you can shed some light on what you have seen across Latin America and the Caribbean.
Well, that Chris said pretty clearly. All the opportunities around e-commerce are evident. At the same time, when we want to leverage productivity, when we want to leverage artificial intelligence, blockchains, Internet of Things, and many other disruptive technologies. So we are seeing that happening in a much slower pace than the one that we understand that the opportunity is allowing us to embrace. So that's probably my general comment. And I am seeing governments making good progress in terms of the internal collaboration environments using these platforms, as we mentioned, Microsoft 55 and others. Entire governments, as in the case of Trinidad, that's moving ahead in that sense. That's a clear opportunity because we have more and more millennials taking the important roles in the different companies. So it's super important that we allow these people to have the same type of experience that they could have in other environments, in the working environments. And governments shouldn't be out of this equation at all. When you go to big corporations, to banks, you are seeing the transformation of how they are leveraging AI, for example, to project and predict demand, to predict churn, for example. All that stuff today is very easy to install, to embrace, and to use in certain environments. When you see how people are taking the data and transforming that into insights. So, for example, you mentioned tools. I normally don't mention tools in this type of conversation, but just to follow that, for example, Power BI is a super, super powerful tool for visualization. And you can, with these components, you give all the power to the business users. So you are allowing them to really wallow into the data in a very simple fashion. And you are seeing more and more and more companies and enterprises and in the world of education just leveraging these components. For example, predicting student desertion. So super important to understand where and why students are deciding to drop in their school. So there are multiple scenarios. We could be talking like for hours about the opportunity. You are seeing small companies with a good idea having the same opportunities in any country, in Trinidad, in Jamaica, in Puerto Rico, in Dominican Republic, than in any of the developed countries in the world. So you are seeing companies that are exporting their value to multiple countries in the region and in the world for healthcare, for example, for all the management of the appointments, for the vaccination now, but also for for example, for having just access to a beauty, for a beauty salon to continue to operate. With the measures that the governments have landed, they have to work around that, and you are seeing the technology playing a critical role. But if you allow me, I would like to bring to this point of the conversation one a study that Microsoft commissioned to Frontier View, this global market intelligence and advisory firm for multinationals as a whole, but we commanded this study specifically, this assessment specifically for the Caribbean, and what we call the roadmap to economic recovery in the Caribbean. And there were plenty of interesting insights that we gathered from this study. Basically, were 29 investments in technologies that can be used and utilized to accelerate this economic recovery in 16 sectors in the Caribbean. And it was we can share this report with the audience. It was part of our commitment to the region to invest in understanding how we can somehow beat the COVID-19 by workarounding and leveraging on technologies. And there were three the main takeaways in terms of the different types of investments that can be done depending on the sector and how that was impacted. Mostly you can see like the fast recovery industries, as for example, construction and infrastructure projects. You can see pharma industry, the medical technology equipment, agriculture, with considering the pre-pandemic income levels that you have had prior to the first half of 2021. By contrast, you can see retail, manufacturing, hospitality, and tourism as being the ones that are more impacted. And these three types of investments and solutions are fully related to what Chris was mentioning in terms of e-commerce as part of the solution to this situation. First, you have the transformative investments. And this is basically the company that started the pandemic with a strong financial position that were not heavily impacted, mostly in terms of their sales, and even in some cases they accelerated the sales during the pandemic, and they are getting much more robust towards the future based on leveraging these digital assets in their plans. And you will find here, as I mentioned, IT and telecom. Obviously, information technologies were somehow even benefited with this crazy situation. Obviously, healthcare with pharmaceutical and medical equipment, financial services institutions, and utilities. You will find that these industries will have like a much prompter recovery. And based on what type of technologies that they will be leveraging and solution, basically remote collaboration, the process migration. This is super important too. Today, you have tools as in case of Microsoft, it's a Power Platform with Power Apps and Power Automate that will allow you almost with no code, we call them low code or no code solutions, to automate some very complex environments as never before. Then you have end-to-end digitalization of the supply chain. So automating these industrial processes are super key. And finally, Clear, once again, the creation of their own platforms on e-commerce to strengthen what they have today, applying artificial intelligence to get this personalization on the customer targeting, for example. This is one of the areas that we identify. The second one is productivity solutions. So basically there we're seeing groups of companies that were heavily impacted by COVID, less favorable in terms of the financial positions. And then you can find agriculture, construction in terms of mining, manufacturing, and the non-durable retail industries. And then you have a different set of strategies that you can apply to improve your position. Once again, demand and revenue predictive analytics is super critical to understand where to focus and what to do. The penetration on the online channels, such as e-commerce, as Chris was mentioning, is super important to leverage that now. And finally, you have what we identify as cash generation solutions, that these were the most affected, that are in the most delicate position nowadays. There you will find retail on the durable goods, restaurants and leisure, hospitals that are oil and gas. That is super relevant for the Caribbean. And in these cases, there are other strategies that potentially can be applied, as for example, virtual agents and e-payments solutions that once again Chris brought in a clear way as part of his value proposition. Also tools to manage the project lifecycle management and forecasting and how these predictive metrics, because you have to be much more accurate in where to invest and where to capture value from your investment in the market. So these are part of the outcomes that we got from this study. And once again, we will share the link with you, Pauline, to make your audience being able to download the report and hopefully being helpful for them.
That sounds like invaluable data that you guys who are listening to this live or on the replay, make sure to click the link in the bio that says contact us. And what happens is we send emails directly out after the session so you can learn more about the information that you'd like to download, because if there's anything, data is key for us to survive. So Herbert mentioned earlier about AI, and I want to put out a question to both of you. So I'll start with Chris first, because Herbert made a point in the Express a couple of years ago. I think it was in 2019 that Trinidad and Tobago must run with AI. But when it comes to artificial intelligence, it sort of has a bad PR. I blame Arnold Schwarzenegger because the infamous "I'll be back" has destroyed us all in the tech world. And when it comes to artificial intelligence, people don't realize something as simple as their Facebook newsfeed, the LinkedIn newsfeed is all built on that. And I want you, Chris, to give just sort of a little tidbit on how that will be incorporated in e-commerce, and then eventually Herbert can close us off with that.
Yeah, thanks. I think the biggest opportunity immediately is, I think you mentioned right then and there, in terms of predicting a buyer's behavior and presenting them with options based upon past purchases, like Amazon, for example. Amazon, we go on there, that it's the best example you can possibly give. It's taken all your past history, where you live, your age, your sex, all of it, and is just constantly presenting you with options based upon the information that it's given, and it's all done through AI, and it's great, and it's really effective. There are, and it's a really good way to continue to drive revenue, whatever your business is. If you can constantly present your customers with ideas and items and services that you think that they will like based upon their past history and their demographic, it's a phenomenal way to generate extra revenue within there. So that's a great example. We're dealing with companies that are using AI in terms of their chatbots, in terms of a bill payment, for example. So you can go onto the Facebook page. It'll ask you, the bot will come up, ask you what you want to do. Say pay bill. You can put your phone number in. It will access the records on the back end. We'll give you a link to input your credit card or debit card, and then you're able to pay your bill very simply. And I think things like that are really good use of technology. We're also doing something similar for restaurants that are in the quick service space. Sort of the fast food restaurants, where again, if you want to pre-order, you can simply do it through a chatbot effectively. So I think those are great ideas and really good ways to meet customers where they are, because you mentioned in Trinidad that there's more phones than people, right? There are, people want to be using your phone. If you're not meeting your customers on their phone and enabling, purchasing or customer service or whatever that might be via an app or a phone format, then you're gonna lose people, because people live their lives through their phones now. They are expensive, but they're expensive for a reason now, because we literally live, most of our lives through it. That whether it's emails or messaging or social media or Netflix or your calendar, whatever that might be, it's all on your phone and it's constantly with you. So you have to use that, use the tools to make that tool work for you in terms of growing a business and making your customers happy. I think it's also a balance. There are some times where you you just want to speak to somebody. The chatbot's not going to work for you. You don't want to wait the 48 hours for the return email. You may have a simple question that can be resolved really quickly with actually just interacting with somebody. And I think some of the bigger companies have, because they have so many customers, they have gone just purely to some sort of electronic interaction with customers. And personally, I feel that's a step too far with the technology. You do need to have that person-to-person touch point. And so, I'll give Apple as an example. It's really hard to speak to an individual at Apple. Trying to change, something in iTunes, it's really hard. There is a wealth of information in terms of the FAQs and the communities, but like I said, sometimes you just want to, be able to dial a number and get hold of somebody.
So I can sort of, this is a safe space. I don't want to talk to anybody. So I am the group of the segment, the millennial, the late one, that digital natives. Just give me a chatbot or give me somebody who actually is on the other side typing away. I'm fine. I don't want to hear your voice. So we have 3 more minutes to close off. So I want Herbert to give us a quick insight into the importance of AI from a Caribbean perspective. And then I want you to just give us also another quick insight into the Memorandum of Understanding that was recently signed with Curacao, because I think that's great news that should be shared with our audience. The floor is yours.
Yeah, sure. And you brought it pretty well, and Chris explained a lot about different scenarios where we have artificial intelligence. And when you mention probably why we have many interests that can be somehow against the success of artificial intelligence, I believe there's a lot of urban myths that we have to clarify, and probably in the past there were some ideas of artificial intelligence that mostly Hollywood turned into something very improbable from our perspective to happen, like a Terminator stuff, jokes aside, it's part of what somehow the population could project about artificial intelligence. We are seeing artificial intelligence as a fundamental, critical, disruptive technology that is opening a huge amount of opportunity for all of us. We are seeing it as an amplification of human ingenuity. That is how we project for the first time ever. And if you see the past industrial revolutions, you will have most of the change was done from a physical amplification of our human capacity. But in this particular case, we are talking about amplifying our human ingenuity. And first and foremost, is something that will be happening no matter what, because you have some pivotal moments in time when evolution goes to a certain place that you would never be able to come back. So if you see how artificial intelligence is projecting, in essence, is enabling machines to show capabilities that we previously only imagined. And basically, where is the area of impact? In reasoning, in understanding, and interacting. And if you go one step down, you drill down on it, you will have 2, let's say, scenarios where computers can understand the world. And one is perception, and the other one is related to cognition. In perception, you normally will have vision and speech. And you mentioned, Pauline, about these chatbots, and maybe Chris, maybe we went too far with them, but regardless where is the midpoint or the right balance, this is something that is happening today in terms of vision, speech, but also in terms of cognition. You go to language and knowledge. And the interesting thing here is that already 2 years ago, computers surpassed the human being in all these 4 categories. So this is the real thing here. So there's no turning back point here. So it's how we really leverage that. And we also commissioned, as I mentioned, the study on the recovery of the Caribbean to the same company, 2.5 years ago, we also commissioned one study about the impact of AI in the economies particularly in Latin America and the Caribbean. And in all the studies, against all the urban myths, so obviously there will be industries and people and companies that will have to change significantly, and that's clear. But the bottom line is that in all the cases, the economies should go in average to grow 4.3% more their GDPs with the full embracement of artificial intelligence. And the study is very detailed in that sense. So this is part of what I said at the beginning, that we should just trust more in technology instead of resisting it, trying to embrace it the proper way, trying to find and strike the balances, because it's not one or the other, is the human being and the machines together. And I believe that this will be an amazing opportunity for the Caribbean if we really leverage that in a proper way.
There we go. I had one. I was on mute. It was bound to happen again. All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much for sharing your insight. I think if it's the biggest key takeaway from this session is we have no choice. We have no choice. Digital is not something that is going to be an afterthought for your business to survive. So thanks again to Herbert from Microsoft and Chris from First Atlantic Commerce. We are closing off now, and we want to wish you a great day ahead, whatever that looks like. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button, follow button. For all the information that was shared today, you need to go ahead and click in the bio, the contact us button, and sign up, because what happens is we share all the insights we learned today, because the idea of getting free education is a must, and the data for your business that you need to learn about your customer is there with Microsoft. So thanks again. Don't forget to mask up and sanitize, and I'll see you in 2 weeks where we'll have another session around data analytics for marketing. See you soon.